It was a beautiful spring day when my friends and I decided to go camping near a Serene Creek. We were excited to enjoy the great outdoors, fish for trout, and have a relaxing time. Little did we know that our camping trip would take a terrifying turn. As we arrived at the campsite, the sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow on everything around us. We quickly set up our tents and unpacked our fishing gear. The creek was a good 20-minute walk away, and we eagerly made our way towards it, hoping to catch some delicious trout for dinner. It was starting to get dark when we got to the creek. The creek was peaceful and clear, glistening under the golden rays of the setting sun. We cast our lines into the water and waited patiently for a bite. As time passed, we began to notice a sense of unease creeping up on us. The air grew colder, and the atmosphere became eerily quiet. We had a great time for about an hour and caught some good-sized trout to have for dinner. However, the strange part was that the place had a terrible smell, as if something had been dead there for a long time. Surprisingly, we couldn't find any dead animals nearby. Just as we were about to pack up and head back to the campsite, a movement caught my eye. I turned my head and saw a woman standing by the creek. She wore a long purple dress, tattered and dirty. Her hair was unkempt, and her face was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. But what sent a shiver down my spine was the wide, gruesome cut on her lips that stretched from ear to ear. My friends and I exchanged worried glances. It was clear that this woman was not a human. Something about her presence felt off, and her disheveled appearance filled us with a sense of dread. We all acted like we didn't see anything but fear in our faces. One of my friends screamed, "Screw this," and ran the heck away from the creek. We all freaked out and ran along with him, leaving our fishing gear at the creek. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every rustle of leaves and every snapping twig seemed to echo in the silence. As we were running next to the small river, we noticed the exact same lady standing on the other side of the river, as if she had magically appeared there. The woman wearing a purple outfit stood completely still near the river, and she kept her gaze locked on us. We started to run faster, feeling scared and wanting to move away quickly. When we got back to the campsite, it was already dark. We huddled together, trying to make sense of what we had just witnessed. The unease in the air lingered, and a sense of foreboding filled the night. We built a fire, hoping its warmth would provide some comfort, but it failed to chase away the chill that had settled deep within our bones. We wanted to just pack our stuff and leave right away, but it was just pitch black and decide that we'll leave in the morning. One of my friends complained that he really wanted to go back to the creek and get his fishing gear because he spent almost $2,000 on his rod and other stuff. Hours passed, and fatigue began to take its toll on us. The darkness seemed to grow thicker, as if it were closing in on me. All four of us friends decide to sleep in my small two-person tent because what we just witnessed freaks us out. As we were about 2 hours into our sleep, I woke up to a woman crying near our tent. My heart raced, and I woke my friends in a panic. We all listened to the cry coming closer to our tent and said, "Please give my babies back." She kept crying and moving around our tent all night long, but the noise gradually disappeared when the sun started shining. We spent the rest of the night huddled together, with our eyes wide open and feeling scared. We couldn't sleep, and we eagerly waited for the first light of morning. When the sun rose, we packed up our things and left the campsite, promising ourselves that we would never go back. What gave us chills was that when we got home and unpacked our stuff, all our fish were gone. I realized that when the crying lady said, "Where are my babies?" maybe she meant the fish we caught. To this day, the image of the woman in purple with her grotesque smile haunts my nightmares. I can still hear her cry echoing in the depths of my mind. The tranquility of that springtime camping trip was shattered by an encounter with something otherworldly, leaving us forever changed. Story number 2. My name is James, and I remember that terrifying camping trip like it was yesterday. Me and my friends were out in the woods, enjoying the warmth of the fire, sipping on drinks, and talking about life. We would plug a small karaoke machine into an electric generator and sing through the dark sky. It was a peaceful night until a man suddenly emerged from the darkness of the forest. He looked distraught, his face filled with desperation. He approached our campsite and asked if we had seen his son. His voice quivered with fear and sadness. We were taken aback by his sudden appearance and the urgency in his voice. We assured him that we hadn't seen any boys around. The man explained that he and his son had gone hunting together, but somehow he had lost sight of his son. His eyes were filled with tears as he shared his heartbreaking story with us. We felt a chill run down our spines and unease settled in our hearts. After a few moments, the man wiped away his tears and quietly walked away into the darkness of the woods. We watched him disappear, a sense of dread lingering in the air. Little did we know that our encounter with him was far from over. When we returned home the next day, we stumbled upon a news article that sent shivers down our spines. It was a year-old news report about a father and son who had gone missing in the very same area where we had been camping. The eerie part was that they were found dead, their bodies 2 miles apart from each other. As we read further, our hearts sank. The picture that came with the article showed the face of the father, and it was the exact same man who had come to our camping spot that night. It was a bone-chilling realization that the spirit of the father had come searching for his lost son, reaching out from beyond the grave. That night, we couldn't sleep. The haunting image of the grieving father haunted our thoughts, and the woods seemed to whisper with sorrow. We couldn't shake off the feeling that we had come face to face with something otherworldly, something beyond our understanding. From that day on, we knew that the woods held a dark secret, a tragic tale that refused to be forgotten. The memory of that camping trip still sends shivers down my spine, a constant reminder that not all mysteries are meant to be unraveled, and that some spirits will forever roam the earth in search of what they have lost. Story number 3. I used to love camping. Every weekend, I would pack up my things and head out into the great outdoors. Sometimes I would go with friends, but even on my own, I found solace in the wilderness. It became a routine until one day something changed. I lost interest in camping. My friends were curious, wondering why I suddenly stopped going. All I could say was that I got bored and didn't feel like going anymore. But the truth was, there was something deeper behind my decision. It took a whole year before I finally opened up about what happened. It was during a late-night party at my house when everyone was a bit tipsy. The courage came over me, and I decided to reveal the story. Here's what happened. On my last camping trip, I wanted to stay at a popular spot where other campers usually gathered. Unfortunately, it was already full, so I ventured further into the wilderness until I stumbled upon a peculiar spot. I noticed that someone had recently left, as there was still smoke rising from their campfire. Without thinking much, I decided to claim the spot for myself. Everything seemed normal until night fell. I was about to call it a day when I noticed another campfire nearby, about 50 feet away. It caught me off guard because I hadn't seen or heard anyone around me all day. It felt like the campfire had appeared out of thin air. I stared at it intently and saw a man sitting with his back turned towards me. He didn't move at all. It was as if he was frozen in place. I turned away briefly to grab a log for my fire. When I looked back, the man and the fire were the same, but something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I continued with my preparations for bed, washing my feet. When I glanced back at the man, the situation felt even stranger. Suddenly, it hit me like a jolt of electricity. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Each time I looked away and turned back, the man in the fire had gotten closer. He was now only 25 feet away from me, as his camping spot was mysteriously shifting closer and closer to mine. My heart raced, and fear gripped my entire body. I grabbed my flashlight, planning to make a hasty retreat to my car. But then, everything went dark. My fire died out suddenly, leaving me in complete darkness. Panic set in as I desperately looked for the man, but he had vanished into thin air. As I stood there frozen, I felt someone bump into me. Even though I couldn't see him, I sensed his presence and his breath so close to me. Summoning every ounce of strength I had, I switched on my flashlight. And there it was, a man's face staring right at me. It was a face I would never forget. Half of it looked as if it had been blasted by a shotgun, pieces missing. I screamed in terror and sprinted to my car. Once inside, I glanced back and saw the man had returned to the fire, sitting exactly where my fire had been. He still had his back turned towards me. As the engine roared to life, I feared he would turn around, but he remained motionless. With trembling hands, I pressed on the gas pedal and sped away, only feeling safe once I was out of sight. When I shared my story with my friends, they were utterly shocked. It was already 1 a.m., so we cranked up the music and stayed awake until sunrise, trying to push away the fear that had settled within us. From that moment on, we swore off camping, afraid that the same thing might happen to us now that we knew the truth.